Morning, everyone.
Happy Sunday morning to you, and I'm so excited to be talking to you, Greg Roach, and with Greg Larson here on our return to Egypt. I know you're going back in just a few weeks, like we were saying off camera here, and how exciting that is. And the three of us are planning the Miracle Tour coming up in March, late March, early April of 2015. Greg, I'm so excited to see you again. Every time we
Yes.
get together, even online, my heart just expands. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. So, in the course of this conversation, we'll have to keep the Greg straight here.
Yes.
You're Greg Prime, Greg Larson. You're Greg Prime, okay? And I'll be like Greg the other, or.
Or be baby or baby cakes or something.
Oh, there you go. That's fine. Okay, baby, that works for me.
Well, last night at dinner, there were quite a few of us, and Greg made this amazing, beautiful spread. And by the end of the night, everyone that was with us was wanting to call him baby. So we'll have to, I think that'll be Greg and baby.
Perfect.
And it's so exciting to be returning to Egypt, and you took me on my first tour, and we had this amazing experience of being on the Nile. For me, experiencing the pyramids for the first time, experiencing just the wealth of love and information that shows up that can't be translated through any book or any video, that experience, and I'm so excited to get to share that with baby.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. I'm so blessed because indeed we were just there in May, and it was a remarkable experience. I'm going again in a few weeks over the holiday. I'll be there over Christmas and New Year's with a trip that's called The Return. And then in April, the three of us will be there for A Course in Miracles in the Land of Miracles. And Sarah, you said it so beautifully. I've just come back from Mexico, and Mexico is a phenomenal country, and I was visiting some truly incredible places, some of the ancient sites, Teotihuacan and some other places like that. And as remarkable as those sites are, and they really are energetically, mentally, psychically, spiritually. But I found myself craving Egypt, craving the energy of Egypt when I was in Mexico. And you're right, there's something about the energy of Egypt, not only from the land, but from the temples and from the way that those two things interact with our consciousness, with our heart centers, with our intention. That is really truly, in my experience, absolutely unique on the face of the planet. So it is difficult to render that energetically, even into words or into video or with images. There's just something about being in that field that is, incredible.
You know what was amazing on this last trip with the group? We had people, just lovely, amazing friends, from doctors to all the way to just starting out in life. The youngest, we had moms, and we had and there was nothing that divided us from each other in this land. Everything that there was such a unity that emerged through the group and emerged from the land. To me, it really was this feeling of reconnecting ourselves at the deepest level to who we are as humanity. And everywhere that I've gone, India, most of Europe, most of the world, Italy, nothing has been quite like the lands of Egypt and the stories that awakened in my heart, and the love of our host that was there, the quest tours, that hosts us there at the MENA House, and then on the boat was so amazing to be nourished by someone trained with the foods, someone nourished to cook for us exactly what we needed and wanted. There was this envelope of love that kind of unwrapped us, or unwrapped me, into being able to experience the ancient history that was written all over the walls, the unspoken feelings that hang out in the air there. It was quite amazing. And so I'm so excited about this next journey, and I know there's been quite some interest. Tell us about the return right now. I know you're returning for the holidays, and what's Egypt like during the holidays?
Oh, it's terrific. I've been there a few times over the holidays, Christmas and New Year's. And, so first of all, you can imagine when it comes to an opportunity to set your intention for the upcoming news cycle. It's just such a powerful opportunity there. But so, one of the first things that we do is when we go and visit the Temple of Karnak on the solstice. We're there on the solstice day, and we watch as the temple gives birth at dawn to the rising sun on the day of the solstice. And of course, this is all completely by design. This is an aspect of this high spiritual genius that the Egyptian culture anchored on the planet. This awareness of our place in the universe and the cycles of nature. And so that's one of, to me, the most remarkable parts of being there over the holiday, is being able to experience that. It is one of those exemplars of this ancient genius, and it's mind-boggling to imagine that people, aligned and manipulated hundreds of millions of tons of stone. This is one of the largest spiritual or religious structures on the planet. And the effect, psychically, energetically, emotionally, is really, woo, it's incredible. And
I loved Karnak. It was so amazing. It was one of those places that we were on, basically the water, going in to these beautiful temples. And I'm really sensitive to energy, as you are, Greg. And what happened to the chakras was palpable for me. These energy centers, these nerve bundles that occur in our body, I could feel each one of the energy centers moving through. And I can't imagine what it's like when we're there on the day that the solstice, the equinox days, where they're designed to be the most energetically powerful for activation. And if I remember correctly, people came from all over during those times, and thousands of people would gather.
Absolutely, that's exactly right. And so, not only is there this deep psychic awareness inside of us, there's a lineage memory around these pivotal dates, like the equinox, for instance, and an understanding that, okay, we've reached to the low point of the natural cycle, and now the cycle is returning, or for instance, New Year's Day as being, for us in the West at least, this pivotal point where we say, okay, we're going to set our intentions for, the next solar cycle of the year. And so we'll be we'll be going into a private meditation inside of the King's Chamber, inside of the Great Pyramid, probably the greatest man-made resonating structure on the planet. On New Year's Day, we'll be going in, to anchor those intentions for our lives in the upcoming year. And so there's the psychic component of it that we carry around, each of us individually. But then you're absolutely right. There is the much larger geomantic, celestial, cosmic component, as the entire, sort of machine of creation moves through these cycles, and it locks in between the body, the psyche, the emotional body, our own energy field, and the great cosmic energy field, with these ancient temples, this ancient spiritual technology, as kind of the pivot point, as the focusing machine for both of those things. And it's incredibly powerful, and it's a real blessing, to be able to do this work and to help to guide people through it. And when you were talking just a few minutes ago about the chakras, this is one of the things that we have discovered, and that other people have spoken about, is the correlation between the chakras in our own energy body and the temples in Egypt as we're sailing the Nile. And there's a direct correspondence between the temples and the god or goddess, the netter, as the ancient Egyptians would have referred to them, that are associated with that temple, and the energy imprint inside of our own subtle bodies. That's associated with that stage of spiritual development, that stage of spiritual transcendence. And you touched on it earlier when you said you felt that we were in such a state of unity consciousness on our last trip. And that was so true, and that's one of the things that Egypt, cultivates in people. It's really quite remarkable, to see it. And, when we were talking about the next trip, the one in April, and when you mentioned A Course in Miracles, immediately this huge light bulb went on in my awareness, and I was like, oh, that's just brilliant. That's a genius bit of insight. Because, A Course in Miracles is ultimately, and it's so difficult to shorthand, to give an elevator pitch for a work of such profound depth and such profound importance and meaning. But ultimately, it's about returning our consciousness to the awareness of the underlying unity. That's the miracle. That's, the miracle behind all of creation, and the awareness that, we are all one, and there's one substance, and there's one life. And of course, it's one thing to know that in the brain, in this little narrow strip up here. It's another thing to be able to embody that and to walk in that in your whole energy field. And that's, at least, for me, a big part of what the Course in Miracles is about. It's about transforming the totality of your awareness. And so that's why I just am so excited about the trip that the three of us are going to be sharing, is because of how, this sort of new, in regards to sites that are 4,000 or 5,000 years old. Of Course in Miracles is a couple of decades old, but of course the wisdom that it embodies is ancient. But the meshing of this kind of new system, or this new awareness, this new way to approach these ancient spiritual truths, and these sites and places and energies that are beyond ancient, actually. And I think it's going to be frickin' incredible. So
I love the way that the Course in Miracles starts out, and every student, and I am a student, as we all are, of life and of the Course, and something that I've embodied in the teachings that really came to me at in the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, was the experience of feeling that transmission of our oneness inside the depths of awareness in every cell, and then I could feel it with each person there. I experienced that sensation of absolute perfect love, which can't be described in words. The Course in Miracles begins out with saying love can't be described, but the barriers to it can.
Right.
And ultimately, that's what I saw happening for each person that was with us on the last tour, was just their ability to remove sort of the hypnotic trance that they had put themselves under, that kept them from not being able to receive love, not being able to receive sort of kinship and friendship and the beauty of their own soul. And so when we were planning out this March-April tour, this next tour coming up, the words and the images and all of the feelings that I get reading the Course in Miracles kept coming up. And I love that when we were talking about it, you said, oh, yes, just this week or within the past few days, I've been looking at the Course.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely. Well, and you're completely right about the effect of the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid. It's such an incredible place, and it's inexplicable, the energy in that place. But it's a tube torus. Of course, everything is a tube torus. But our intentions are broadcast out into the stream of future possibilities. The frequency of our heart centers are broadcast out into the current reality of the world. But then for us as individuals, when we're in there, all of that is returning back up into us. So the love of the world, and the love of the ascended masters and all of those on the unseen plane who are furthering the evolution, the spiritual evolution, and the evolution of consciousness on the planet, they're there guiding us, and feeding us so much information. But also, it's like all of the future possibilities of our lives sort of come rolling into our energy bodies. And so, we're really, when you're in the King's Chamber, you're sort of this 0 point of creation, creating love in the moment, taking in love in the moment, being sort of fed love by the universe, and all of the forces of our good. But then we also become this still point for the creation of the future, the collective future, and our own personal future. And again, that's why I think one of the things that's so profound about this ancient technology, this ancient spiritual technology that some of these structures represent. And the other thing that came to mind is a few weeks ago when I was in Mexico, I was reading some Castaneda, and Castaneda talks about the different levels of awareness, so to speak. And one of the things that he says is that the ancient sites in Mesoamerica, that they're, well, I'm going to really shorthand this, but that their constructs of perception around what life is, and what the world is, are so different from a modern Western person's. And the same is very true of Egypt. Their symbolic structures, their art, the way that they perceived of life and creation was very different from our own. And Schwaller de Lubitz referred to that as the symbolique. And when he did all of his investigations at Karnak and Luxor. And the reason that I bring this up is because one of the first things that happens in the course is that it starts to break down, and asks you to question in the most fundamental way what we think of as reality. And in understanding that that object or that person or that situation or this room or whatever has no meaning other than what I give it.
Yes.
And so when you're in the energy field, the artistic field, the symbolic field of a place like ancient Egypt, it becomes even easier to enter into that process, because you're automatically being confronted with a way of reconstructing reality that's so different from our modern Western Cartesian one. And which is, again, that's one of the reasons that I thought, the insight about, hey, let's do a course in miracles.
Yeah.
I just, it's such a perfect fit, and I'm
It,
really excited.
and
I'm excited not only to share the work, to be there with the two of you, and share the
yeah,
work with everyone that's journeying with us, but I'm excited in a really selfish way, because I want to be able to
the
experience the
miracles.
growth in the place.
What's amazing with is we're standing in these spaces that it's miraculous. It's a miracle to be standing there for many, that we get there, and then it's miraculous to see these buildings, these creations that have been hanging out for thousands and thousands of years, and then it's so exciting to feel the experience and share it with people. There is an interaction that happens to go when you're with people that you're somehow karmically therewith at the same time, this shared experience. And I love what the Course systematically does is give, and I would use the word forgiveness.
Yeah.
It gives us forgiveness systematically to different areas of our life that we didn't even know necessarily needed to have and allow us to let go. And so I know you've been to Egypt before.
I have.
And so what's drawing you with us this time?
Well, it's funny, Greg was talking about being there over the holidays. When I was there in 91, 92, I was there over the holidays, and I spent Christmas Day on the Nile in a felucca down at Aswan. We were in Aswan.
Yes.
So, and to me, when I think about it, that trip kind of awakened me spiritually. It was kind of my initial spiritual awakening, even though we didn't go into the temples and have all these cool things that you guys did and we're going to be doing on this new trip. It was still a powerful awakening to be in Egypt and to be standing in front of the temples and looking at them was, like you said, it rearranges your perception because it's like, wow, this stuff is like off the charts, so amazing. And to think that they did this so many thousands of years ago is like, it just creates a trip in the mind. It's like, wow, it brings you to a deeper place just by being in its presence.
It erases the records that play in your head. It erases the connections and implanted for me this amazing connection to a deeper level of truth. And I've been a teacher and a student and traveled, and I've seen the Taj Mahal, and I've seen these great structures, but nothing is quite like that experience. That you don't even need to have a spiritual core. Like in your when you were a college student, and when you went, it opened the flood gateway.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you know, it's interesting because my big spiritual awakening was in Egypt. So, Greg,
yes,
spiritual awakening in Egypt, spiritual awakening in Egypt. And you know, when you were talking about the karmic draw that happens, I mean, every trip that I've taken to Egypt, I'm always floored by the perfection of spirit when it comes to orchestrating every aspect of what needs to happen. The people that are drawn there, you know, it's like every breath, every atom of experience is a teaching, is a learning, and you know, Greg, there's something about Egypt as a whole. There's the you know, the energy of the land that is incredible. And you're right, you don't even need to go into a temple, and you certainly don't need to, you know, have kind of a modern understanding. You don't need to be there for a spiritual rationale or, you know, as a seeker for it to have that effect on you. It's just one of the, you know, the omphalos points. It's one of the huge, like, vortex points of the planet, and you know, on that basis, it's activating us. But I also know and have seen time and time again that when people come on these kinds of pilgrimages, you know, if they're drawn to be there with, you know, the two of you or the three of us, it's because they are reconnecting and remembering a pivotal incarnation where they were undoubtedly, you know, had achieved a high level of spiritual mastery in that ancient civilization, in that ancient place, and they want to be able to carry those kind of skills. It's not really necessarily the right term, but they want to be able to awaken those and carry them forward into this incarnation, so that they can, you know, keep moving forward with their soul work. And I've seen that, you know, that play itself out over and over again. So, you know, not only if you're on the Nile, or if you're in Egypt, are you being awakened at this cellular level? If you're being drawn, you know, to the kind of pilgrimage work that we're doing, it's because you really want to activate and bring forth that karmic past, or the experience from those previous incarnations, and to be able to anchor it and remember it and activate it as a a positive force in this incarnation. And,
That's so awesome, and I like to think of it as giving yourself, just like you're sharing with, when you remember, there's a sacred remembering, it gives you choices that you had forgotten at some level that you could make, meaning that you have a whole new spectrum of tools, a whole new process to choosing what and how you express yourself, and choices and how to ultimately connect deeper into the areas of your life that you're really here to express this time around.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And
So,
with your trip when you were in the 20s, when you came back, what was that like for you? Back in, I know you were in England at the time.
I was studying in England, so that was the trip I took over the holidays. And that whole year was such a profound journey. Because then a few months later, I went to India over the spring break, and then I had kind of a real powerful, palpable moment on that trip that really set me off into another universe, really, or another dimension. But it was definitely being in Egypt, and on a cellular level, because we were with a guide. There was no teachings. It was just me and this other college friend. We were kind of exploring and looking around. But it was just, it's like I tell people, when you go to Norway and there's this beautiful nature, you look at it and it's just like it stops the mind. It's so amazing. It's so beautiful. And it's the same way in Egypt. You go and look at these temples and it stops the mind. They're so profoundly beautiful and powerful and awe-inspiring. Just that in itself is which you don't have in America. You don't, I mean, unless if you live in the Rocky Mountains or something like that. But from the Midwest, it's oak trees, they're beautiful, but they don't have that, that really profound awakening, jaw-dropping beauty.
And even in Norway, there's jaw-dropping beauty, but there isn't these beautiful temple structures that are larger than anything that can be created today that we know of, technology-wise. And I love the Course in Miracles for what I think got activated for you was miracles. That in short. And the Course really shares there is no order of difficulty in creating miracles. There's no order and difficulty in that. And once you're in that space and get that choice, that remembering, that technology embedded within your body, you then are able to create these lifelong, going to India. Greg, for you, after your first trip, being able to dissolve the structures that really had you caged in, boxed in, and were able to then create a whole new life out of that. And for me, this last trip, literally all the veils fell to where I can really experience any being or person coming through and understand and translate what's being shared. And simply put, I can channel any information very, very clearly and accurately. It really expanded my ability to connect miracle to miracle.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, one of the key perceptions of the ancients is what in modern terms we refer to as that 0 point. It's sort of the tesseract in a way, where it's like you said, there are no gradations to the miracle. So anything is possible to go from 0 to here, if you are in the appropriate state of receptivity and consciousness and awareness. And that was a fundamental component of just their way that they understood the world, And Greg, if in your 20s you went to Egypt, followed quickly by a trip to India, obviously you were looking to wake up and remember what you already knew. Because as a college student in London, you could have gone to Ibiza and Monaco on those trips. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
Definitely. No, it was. As because I'm a big student of Eckhart Tolle, and it's funny because when The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle's big book, it was like he mentions A Course in Miracles in there more than any other reference. So obviously that's a teaching very influenced by that. But he says, that first awakening comes by grace, and it was certainly by grace that I was led to Egypt on this first big, expedition, this spiritual expedition. It was like a calling to be there. It was a pilgrimage to go there. It was like all of that. It was and I answered the yes, and I went, and by grace there was this cellular shift. There was this awakening of deeper, more sacred knowledge, and it led me to this whole journey that I'm still on. And I'm on new levels, acquiring new skills, new knowledge to be even a better healer, to be a better teacher, all of that. And it all started with my trip to Egypt.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, so maybe we can shift gears just very quickly, and I could give people a few practical level details about the trip and accommodations and things like that. So first of all, I really hesitate to go into the place of the evening acknowledging irrational fear. But I know that a lot of people, they want to know, is Egypt safe? And I always just like to address that concern full on. Egypt is much safer than Los Angeles. Let's face it. It's actually it's much safer than our homes. Statistically, our homes are the most dangerous places on the planet. My shower is much more likely to do me harm than anywhere else. But no, all kidding aside, we tend to conflate things, especially here in the States, and we might be a little confused by that geography thing. Egypt is a very long way from some of the trouble spots in the Middle East, like Syria or Iraq, for instance. It's a very, very long way from Equatorial Africa, where things with Ebola are happening. So that's the first thing: is that geographically, it's thousands of miles from anywhere where there are any difficulties going on. It's an extremely stable country. There was a revolution 3 years ago, and I guess about a year and a half. Well, when we were there in May, actually, was when the full election happened. And they have a new president, and things in the country are very calm and very secure. I personally have been to Egypt more times than I can count. I was there before the revolution, during the revolution, after the revolution, and I've never had any problems in Egypt. And that's traveling as an individual, solo, traveling with groups. Part of what we do is we stay in constant contact with the appropriate intelligence communities inside of the government. Our partner there, Mohammed Nazmi, has connections at the very highest level. And so that's something that we are always very conscious of. When we go like out in a bus, we'll have a security person with us. So and here's the biggest way to allay anyone's concerns. The three of us are going to be going to Egypt. So if it wasn't safe, we wouldn't be there. But more importantly, I think as a spiritual principle, the idea of giving into fear, and especially a fear that is based on false information or the illusion of the media. That's one of the first battles that we as individuals have to overcome, is to walk in truth. So
as a woman, I felt so honored and so safe there, and everywhere I went, Egyptian as well as our guides, our guards, I mean, they were so kind. Every person I remember taking that big tour bus through this tiny little alley. And
Yes.
all the kids and everyone there was so, they were so excited, and they welcome us. And we stayed at the MENA House, where, you know, Jimmy Carter stayed, where many of the stars in Hollywood. And while I was there, while we were there at the MENA House, at the airport, there were children and people coming from Europe on little school trips at the airport. Much of what we see and much of what I saw when I returned in the media was inflated information and fears, which is none of my experience while I was there. I was safer, like you said, Greg, there than I was feeling in downtown LA or down at Venice in Venice, California. It was so safe because they were so grateful. Everyone there was so grateful we were there, and they literally have had tourists come to the country and merchants and people for thousands and thousands of years. So they've got great social graces and mannerisms towards guests to their country.
Absolutely, no, that's exactly right. And you know, the idea of it being an Islamic country is meaningless in truth. I mean, there's no doubt there are parts of the world, parts of the Middle East, you know, like Syria, for instance, where you probably don't want to go just at the moment. But Egypt is not one of those by any stretch of the imagination. So it's important that we not, you know, conflate things that really are totally unrelated. You know, and in a way, it would be like saying, oh, you know, I don't want to go to San Francisco because there is, you know, violence south of the border, or there's violence in Central America. You know, if an American were to say that to you, you'd be like, really? Well, that doesn't make any sense. But that's a very legitimate, you know, analogy for what people think sometimes. So, and usually my experience is that these pressures come not from the individual, but from a family member or a friend who'll be like, you're gonna do what? Are you crazy? You know, and again, there's, you know, it's not based on fact. And now you mentioned the MENA House. When we're in Cairo, that's one of the places that we'll be staying, and it is the grande dame of Egyptian hotels. It has an incredible history. It was built as a palace by the last king of Egypt, as a hunting palace, and indeed it has hosted, you know, Winston Churchill and Roosevelt, and, you know, the armistice to end the First World War was signed there, and, you know, Cary Grant, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, whoever. I mean, this is, you know, they all stay at the MENA House, and it's just such a beautiful place, and it is literally within the shadow of the pyramid. I mean, when we're having, you know, breakfast in the dining room, or when you're sitting on the balcony of your room and you look out and there's the Great Pyramid like a mountain in the sky. It's you know, really just such a beautiful setting. And so we'll when we're in Cairo, we'll be at the MENA House. And then when we're in the south of the country, between Aswan and Luxor, we will be sailing aboard the Afandina, which is our private dahabeah, and that's going to be our hotel, our home away from home, for the entire time that we're in the south, and we use that as a kind of a mobile, you know, base of operations. And that is such a wonderful experience, because it's like having our own luxury home that's floating down the Nile. It's not like having, that's exactly what it is. It's our own floating luxury home as we sail the Nile.
Yeah.
And you know, as you were mentioning earlier, Sarah, we have a private chef. The food is all organic, macrobiotic. It has come out of a field that day. You know, there are almost as many crew as there are guests on the boat, and it's just such a lovely, intimate environment, not only for exploring the country, but for sharing the the lessons that were there to experience, whether those are on a personal level or on a group level. So. And then, we'll be doing a number of private visits. So we'll go and stand between the paws of the Sphinx. We have a private visit, a 2-hour private visit inside the Great Pyramid. We'll be going into the Temple of Isis at Philae privately. So we really get the star treatment. We're in Egypt. Not just like the movie star, the political star treatment, but the cosmic star treatment.
Yes. It was amazing how everything was so everything that every person listed that they wanted at the beginning of the trip occurred, manifested. And so I hope you'll come join us. We have small children. We have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old right now that will soon be 10 and 8. We would not be going with unless we knew we could come back better people for them, better in the sense with more tools. This is something that we are doing because we love humanity and we want everyone that has a calling to feel safe and able to experience miracles in their life. And by going to Egypt with us, we are ensuring that what you're looking to generate and create in your life, we will be your assistants, be here to help manifest those miracles we know are available for you. And that's my intention with this trip, and my intention for going with beautiful baby and amazing Greg Roach as well. And I'm so looking forward to seeing Muhammad and the crew. They are a part of my heart now and part of my daily prayers, because there's such love for the people that we met and connected with in Egypt as well. So I hope you'll come join us. Greg, what's the best way to get information about you?
You can just go to Spirit Quest Tours, and my personal email address is Greg, not baby, Greg, at Spirit Quest Tours. So that's 2 T's right together, questtours.com.
Awesome. And then for Greg and myself, I love to answer questions. Greg, you're a great channel for the white light, for the Council of Light as well. And Greg does heart activations and these amazing activations. And we'd love for you to reach out, ask questions about what's going to happen on the tour. Greg can be reached at giglarson@gmail.com, and myself, hello, Dr. Sarah, or Dr. Sarah Larson. That's my website, Dr. Sarah Larson, and we're so happy to get you connected to Egypt, whether it's this holiday season or with us. We're with you on your spiritual journey.
Beautiful.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this return, after all these years and all this growth. My whole life is guided by this question, which is, how am I being called to serve? And so this invitation to go to Egypt is certainly a powerful experience of serving our guests who will be coming, serving our, the people who will be joining us, and serving in any way possible. And while I'm there, having that intention be activated, so when I come back, I can be an even more powerful service in the world, more powerful sharing. I just want to help, give back, contribute. All of those I want to have amplified on the trip in Egypt. That's my personal intention, is to be even more powerful, example and in action serving in the world.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. And there's a number of callings behind a pilgrimage like this. Sometimes an individual is working on something powerful in themselves. Sometimes an individual has maybe completed some aspect of that work. Let's face it, we're always working on ourselves, but maybe they've moved up to that next step of being more actively or consciously in service to humanity. And of course, these things, they interlock beautifully. Enlightenment begins at home, which ultimately is the only thing we really have control over, is our own consciousness. But whether you are a light worker who's in service and who's doing grid work activation, or whatever level you're playing at, Egypt is the perfect playing field for playing at that work.
And so come play with us. Come get the miracles on and the service on. And let Egypt bring out in you the parts of you that are in service, in miraculous, in these powerful places already, from multiple trips prior to this consciousness. Whatever is there, let that allow you to be more of who you are in this lifetime. And so, I know we're going to do more of these webinars with specifics coming up. I'm so grateful for all of those that are able to view this. I'm grateful to you, Greg, for joining us this beautiful Sunday morning. Thank you, baby.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, baby.
Awesome. And so we will see you again soon, Greg.
Yes. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you. And that means source willing, God willing.
Right.
Awesome.
Okay. Bye, lovelies.
Bye-bye.